Oh, look who we got here today. Welcome, Mr. Ian Peyse of Deep Purple to Linear Rock. Always a pleasure to have you in Italy. You come here very often. So
I come here whenever I can, yeah.
Concerts, interviews, clinics.
And guesting with some local Italian musicians, which I have a great many friends here who play really well. And they give me the chance to play at a time when Deep Purple would not be touring. And this is very important, so I can remember what to do.
So you have a special connection with Italy. We can say that?
Yeah. I tend to work with more Italian musicians than anywhere else. And I was just talking to somebody years ago, before Deep Purple, I was in this wonderful town, Milan, for 3 months. I was working at the Piccolo Teatro.
Yes.
The band I was in, we provided music for a stage play. I mean, it was very strange. We had to do 7 songs a night in Italian. Wow. The singer didn't know what he was singing about. And the director of the show didn't want the keyboards or the drums on stage to detract from the play. So myself and the keyboard player, we played behind the fire curtain at the back. And at the end of the show, when we used to come and take the bow, you could see all the audience going, who's that? I didn't see him. And it got so depressing in the end. We used to lie in bed all day in the hotel, and we'd just put a coat on, still in our pajamas, and go and play the show. And then just get changed to do the bow, and then go back into pajamas and back to the hotel again.
But you have good memories.
Oh,
Those were the 60s, right?
That was 67, 1 year before Deep Purple.
Wow. Okay. But you're here in Italy today to promote a new album of Deep Purple, which is coming out very soon, in about a month.
Well, the end of this month, end of this month, yeah.
And so 19th record for the band. And Now What is the title. And it's been like 8 years since you've done your last record. What happened in between? I mean, it was like a low inspiration in this period. You were busy in other projects, concerts, or what happened?
Well, for the last 10 years, we have been touring extensively. And that means 6-7 months a year on the road, away from home, away from family, away from other business interests that, happen as you get older. And there just wasn't time to contemplate making a record, and there wasn't the desire, because most of the life was already taken with the touring schedule. But in 2011 we decided that we would make an easier year in 2012. We had one little concert tour in Canada at the beginning, and we had some things planned in Europe for the end. But in the middle, we decided to take 8 months off with nothing. Okay. Now you cannot let this time be non-productive. So it seemed, as we had the time, it might be a good idea to think, would we like to make another record? And as we had no time limitation there, everybody was quite willing to try to create some new music and then record it. Because it's very difficult if you only have 1-2 months between tours to have the right feeling to create new music and then record it in a relaxed fashion. When you don't have this deadline, you must finish now because next day you have to go around the world and play a concert. So this was easy. And once we'd made the decision that we'd like to try and do it, obviously the rumour in the business got round, and we got contacted by Boba Ezrina, a legendary producer. And he basically said, if you think I would be of any help to you, I'd like to be involved in the project. So we managed to get a meeting together with Bob. He came to see a concert in Toronto. The next morning we had a meeting, and having seen us on stage, he said, what I think we need to do, we don't need to make a studio album. We need to make a live studio album. New music, but making a record in the old-fashioned way where everybody is in the studio playing together, the instrumentals, and to try and capture some of that free-form creativity and excitement that you get from a live show. Which when you create records in the modern way with one guy playing and another guy, it's very, very difficult to get any excitement. You get perfection, but it's not exciting. Anyway, so once we realised we were all thinking in in the same direction for an album, then it was fairly simple to get the process going. We took 2 weeks in a big sound stage in central Germany. We just locked ourselves away and we just put ideas in.
Yeah.
Ideas that would become little baby songs. And at the end of the 2 weeks, I think it wasn't even 2 weeks, 10 days, we had 14 ideas what we thought were good. You know, sometimes it would start with a drum pattern, sometimes it would be a little idea Steve had brought in, sometimes it would be a bass riff that Roger. It was just music by committee, but a very, very friendly, happy committee. And when we sent these demo tapes over to Bob and to Ian Gillan, and everybody liked what was happening. So then it just needed Bob to use his knowledge of finding the right studio to capture the sound correctly, and a big enough studio for us to be in the same room. Because most studios are like this now. It's all for electronics, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, a bit bigger than this, but not much. So we found this great studio in Nashville called the Tracking Room, and it's an old style studio. It's probably 30 meters long, 15, 16 meters wide, 2 stories high, and you can all get in there and you can make music. We took a week of pre-production in Nashville just to fine-tune and arrange the songs a little more correctly, and then we went in the studio, and the basic backing tracks were cut in 10 days. Very, very quick. And that can happen when the ideas are good. You are excited about playing them, you're interested in playing them. You've got a great studio which gives you a great sound immediately. You know, within 2 hours of setting up the drums, we were recording.
Yeah.
That quickly. And
so you worked on the songs in the studio?
Well,
no,
most of the work was done before we hit the studio.
Okay.
Most of the serious work was that 1 week before the studio. But by that time, you don't know the songs the same way you know the old songs, but you know them well enough that you can get through the recording process. And because the ideas were so strong and the sound was so good quickly, we were able to do nearly every song was done in 1, 2 or 3 takes. There wasn't time to get bored with the song, you know. When you play something 20 times, you're not in the act of creation anymore. You're in the act of recreation. Because when you've done it that many times, you start thinking, what did I do last time? And you try to copy this. Whereas the first 1, 2, 3 times you play it, everything is different and fresh. You have no idea, you have no plan. It just happens. And sometimes that doesn't give you the perfect take, but it gives you the perfect take. Where 20 takes later, it is technically 100%, but it can be sterile. It can lose that little bit of magic, which makes the difference. But because we were so happy with what was going on, the ideas were so well planned, everything was 1, 2, 3 takes, and anything that needed repairing were just little bits here. I may have missed a drum beat and hit, just missed the middle of the drum, and you have to replace things like that. But it was very, very quick. And when you do make a fast record, it's generally a good one. I know Machine Head was done in 3 weeks with no effort whatsoever, and this one, it just felt easy to make, and that generally means good things.
And Bob was the perfect man at this point of your career? I mean, when he actually called you and say, I'm available.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You immediately knew he was the best?
Well, we knew if we could get Bob interested, the very, very least we would get would be a good sounding record. But I'd never worked with Bob before. But what we found out to our delight was not only is he a good producer, great producer, he has a great musical mind too. His knowledge of music is extensive, and he can explain to you in a musical way if you're doing something wrong. It's no good somebody comes out of the control room and says it's not working, and you ask him why, and he says I don't know. Bob will say it's not working because you've changed this. That chord there, you've changed it, shouldn't be that way. That drum fill doesn't work. He would tell you a musical way where you just gone down the wrong road. He pulled you back.
Yeah.
And when he told you in a musical way, it made sense and you understood, and you could carry on and get it done quickly. So that was really very valuable. And a couple of moments of in the pre-production room where Bob would get involved in a very, very light way with the composition. You know, he would add his musical feeling from without the band, outside, looking in. Where he saw something was maybe not quite as good as something else, he would suggest something else and change it round. So that was really very refreshing.
The song Hell to Pay has a children choir in it, which was Bob's idea.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Once we'd done our tracks, we let Bob get on with his creative side. You know, it's trust. You trust him to do the right thing. You know. The next thing, once I'd finished my tracks, I went home. And the next thing I heard was all the other things that he'd added to it. That's okay. And then the next thing I heard was when Ian had done the vocals. You know, and I say my bit was 10 days. I was in and out of the studio and back home with my family. But that's the way I like it. You know, there's no point in me hanging around the studio just watching the other guys work. But you know, we trusted Bob to do a really good job, and that's exactly what he did. And I'd like to think sometime we'd work together in the future, because I think we both had a good time. He enjoyed it, we certainly did.
There's a special song on this new album, Alive and Beyond, which is dedicated to John Lord. Mm-hmm. How the song was inspired by, I mean, what happened, and is that, I mean, will you play it live also? Do you have anything special in mind?
There are 2 or 3 pieces on the album which they relate to John. I mean, that is one song where it has the spirit of John in it. But there's another one which is Uncommon Man, where the intro to that, which is about 2 minutes long, was an idea conceived by John and Steve in a free-form solo part of the stage show, which we still use now with Don and Steve. And we got the track finished, and Bob said it needs something at the beginning. It needs something to set it up. And he'd seen us do the concert. He said, why don't you take that free-form idea and put it in the context of Uncommon Man? So Don and Steve went in the studio, and Bob told me to go in and just make some dramatic effects with the drums. And basically, Don and Steve, they chose a chord, and everything they played was a relative note to this chord. So within the structure of that, they were totally free to go where they wanted with each other. And that glorious two minutes of music took exactly 2 minutes to record, 1 take, totally live. Went in and listened to it in the control room. It was just absolutely wonderful. Bob stuck it on the front of the song, and it's just like it was there always.
Wow.
Yeah. But above and beyond, it's a waltz. It's a 3/4 tempo, time signature, and once I'd gone back to England after, I had no idea what Ian and Roger were going to create for the lyrics. No idea. And I was so happily surprised when I heard the finished thing, because it's not what you would expect it to be. It's not a rock and roll song, but it is. Mm-hmm. But it's got so much in common with old Celtic folk songs, and it has a wonderful charm because of it. Very simple little story, but it just sort of works, and it's the sort of thing that would not be obvious to do. The obvious thing would have been less interesting, but this simple little idea made this wonderful loping 3/4 track. Mm-hmm. Just a really nice piece of music.
John was like a brother for you all, especially for you.
Yeah.
Ian, you had a really special relation with him. I'm sure you have a lot of memories about him. Is there any snapshot about him that you want to share with us? First thing that comes to your mind right now.
John had 2 sides to his character. When he was socializing, he was incredibly gentle and friendly and funny and entertaining. And when he was a musician, he could be incredibly stubborn. He didn't bend very much musically. He knew what he wanted and sort of stuck to it. So those were the two sides of his character. But to socialise with him was a joy. He was a pure raconteur. He could tell stories all night long, and he was ever the gentleman. And he liked being the gentleman too.
You are the only member of Deep Purple at the moment that has been in the band since the very beginning and on whole album, on the whole discography. Yeah. What's the secret, Ian? And do you really feel that this is your family?
I've worked with other people. In times when Deep Purple's not been an entity, or when we've had time off, I've worked with other people, and I've enjoyed it all. I had a great time with Whitesnake. I've never laughed so much in my life. It was the funniest band in the world. Yeah. I had a good time with Gary Moore. That was very interesting. I had a lovely time with Paul McCartney. But Purple is like going home. Whatever Purple is, it's something that I helped create, and it's mine. Yeah. With other people, I'm just helping them create their thing, and that's a different thing entirely. I enjoy it, but it's not mine, it's theirs. Okay. Purple is mine. And for good, bad or indifferent, I'm very proud of it. It's created my life. And when I talk to fans of the band, I realise after all these years that it's touched a lot of people and made them happier people. There's something in their life we did which they enjoyed. And that's a pretty nice thing to think about, because that wasn't the intention. When you're a kid, you do it for me, doing everything for me. But later on, you realise that you created something which was important to a lot of people in a good way, and I think that's really pretty cool.
So you mentioned Whitesnake, Gary Moore Band, and Paul McCartney, which are some of the things that you've done beside Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Is there any of this experience that you consider that belonged more to, that you felt, yours the most, apart from Deep Purple?
Obviously the Whitesnake time was good because a lot of the music, again, was created in a very similar way to Deep Purple. A lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was Bernie Marsden songs and David Coverdale songs. But some of the tracks were created in the same way. So I have quite an affinity to them. I wouldn't do it again because at the time I didn't believe it should be called Whitesnake. It should have been called David Coverdale because it was David's band. And as much as I don't mind being a sideman for a little while, that's not what I do. I will guest with somebody for a while, but I'm the drummer with Deep Purple, and that's a different level.
A new tour is about to start. First of all, I want to know something, if you can share with us about the set list. I think it's a nightmare all the time, when you have to compile that, because you have a lot of classics. But this new album, as you already said, is very fresh and reminds of the 70s. Yeah. So the new songs maybe will melt perfectly with the classics, so maybe it will be easier this time. I don't know, what do you think?
It's never easier, because if you bring one song in, you have to leave another song out. You only have so much time to fill in a night. When we get into rehearsals at the end of this month, we will try the songs that we think have the possibility to go from the studio to the stage, because not every piece of music can do that. They just don't work the same way. And we will probably select the best 2 or 3, the most immediate ones of the new album, and try and incorporate those into the show without losing any of the classics that we know people want to hear. It's difficult, not impossible. You just have to work it correctly. And you have to be very cruel. You have to say, well, this song is not so important, so this one goes, to get this new song in. But it's a very, very delicate subject. I remember a few years ago, David Bowie had released a new record, and he tried to play the whole record and none of the old things, and people didn't like it. Within 3 days, he'd put the old songs in again, because he's not a stupid man. The audience are there two reasons. They're there because they still like you, but they do want to hear the history, and you can't blame them for that. You are duty bound to give them value for their money and make them happy, but you also need to be able to play new music to them. So it's this balance. We've said, if you've got a little baby song, if you surround it by its big brothers, it's okay.
Okay.
But when you play 3-4 baby songs together that the audience don't know so well, then it's tough on the baby songs. But when you surround them with the more well-known things, people accept them more readily. So that's what we'll try to do. We'll pick the best 2 or 3, maybe 4, depends how well it works out, and they will be surrounded by the classics, and we hope that they will feel at home in there and grow up to be big songs.
Okay. And from a drummer point of view, which are the songs that still gives you chills to play live from Deep Purple discography?
It really does change, It changes on your emotion of the night. It changes on the sound you have in each different venue. Sometimes you have a day like this, you're really up, and you'll get more out of a fast, exciting rock tune. Another day you're a little more relaxed and you prefer a groove. Sometimes the sound is horrible and you don't want to play at all, and you just do a professional job. You do what you can. Other days the sound is great and you'll enjoy the songs where the drums can do more. You're hearing a sound you love that makes you happy, and you want to play things. It's not an exact science, we have the same great equipment every night, but what we cannot control is the room we play in. Sometimes these places are magnificent, and sometimes they're terrible, and there's nothing you can do to change it. When it's a bad night, you become the professional guy, and you do the best job you can for those people. But sometimes you don't enjoy it, and it's just one of those things. Next night, do the same thing in a different hall, and it's easy and great fun.
You're considered one of the most influential drummers of all time, not only in rock music. Was this actually your ambition when you very first started, or not?
No. I'm a realist. I know how many great drummers there are around the world, and I don't consider myself one of them. I consider myself okay. There's things I can do, things I can't do. The most important thing I can do is make people enjoy watching me play. I don't know why that is. I'm happy that they do enjoy what I do. For me, drumming has always been a hobby. It's not an obsession, If it was an obsession, I would be a better drummer than I am now. I would work harder at it, but I wouldn't enjoy it as much. So when I go on stage 5-6 nights a week for 2 hours, I am that 15-year-old kid again, the one that started playing drums in a village pub. I did it then because it made me happy. It's become my life, it's become my business, but it still makes me happy. Whereas when you're a kid, you play when you want to, and when you don't want to play, you don't play. When it's your business, sometimes you have to play when you don't want to play, but that's just the nature of the thing. But usually, once I sit down behind the kit, all the other stuff goes away, and I'm happy.
Okay. There are also a lot of jokes about drummers. Everybody says that the craziest in the band is the drummer, or what's the guy that's hanging out without a musician? It's the drummer. Okay. So is there anything that you can say to defend the category? And
it's a very simple one. The drummer's job is secure. There will always be a drummer, and the simple reason is you cannot borrow 50 euros from the drum machine. You can always borrow 50 euros from the drummer.
Okay, that's a good one. In 1992, you took part to a tribute to John Bonham, playing the Rover from Physical Graffiti. What I would like to ask you is, which is your point of view about, that eternal clash of titans between you, Ian, and John Bonham, and between Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, which seems are two different schools,
Yeah. As far as the musicians were concerned, there was no clash, no nothing.
Okay.
The fact that we came from the same country at a similar time, that's just history. But Zeppelin approached it one way and we approached it another. And what we both did, people seemed to like. I love Zeppelin. I thought they were a magnificent band. And John was a friend of mine. I mean, not a close hello every day sort of friend, but when we saw each other, it was always nice to see each other. And what he created in drumming was glorious. He, without intention, he simplified heavy rock and roll drumming down to its basic components. And every note he played was an important note. But if it didn't need playing, he didn't play it. And what he had was this wonderful groove and this amazing sound. And people today are still trying to get Bonham's drum sound. They never quite get it because they're not Bonham. You can get close, but so much of what drum sounds are created by the man and not the instrument. With John, it was how hard he hit them, how he tuned them, where he hit them, how fast the stick came away. All these things are totally unique to a drummer. And every one of those things is part of what creates the sound. And John just had that. It was wonderful. Nothing but, love and respect for that and for so much of what Zeppelin did, which was just wonderfully musical. And when it needed to be not musical, it was wonderfully aggressive. Wonderful, yeah.
So you are left-handed, and your drum style is very fast and smooth, and you're able to do things with just one hand and one foot that a lot of other drummers cannot do with two. So it's. Do you still actually practice every day for hours, or it's just natural talent that you must have?
I never practiced every day for hours. I never had time.
Okay.
I got my first drum kit when I was 15 years old, my 15th birthday, and started playing with a little local cover band, like every kid does. Yep. But I had a job in the daytime, and I lived in a very small house, so you couldn't, with other houses connected, so you couldn't play drums. So the only time I played was in the rehearsal room or on stage with my friends. And I did that 2 or 3 nights a week, every week. There was enough work there for little kids to do that. And when I was 17, I turned professional, and I was playing 7 nights a week and traveling. So there was never time to sit and learn in a practice room. I was always learning on stage. Now for that to work, you have to have a latent talent, which is sort of almost immediate. And then all you're really doing is improving on that by taking in more information. Because every night you'd be working with 1, 2 more bands, so you'd see 1 or 2 different drummers every night. And they may have 90% rubbish, but 10% of good stuff. So you try and take that good stuff and you bring it all into your style. And when the field you take from is big enough, you end up with your own style. If you only take from 1 or 2 places, it's obvious you sound like somebody else because you're trying to be Bonham, you're trying to be Keith Moon, you're trying to be Ginger Baker. But when you take from Buddy Rich, when you take from some orchestral players, when you take from a country player, when you take from Bonham, the levels of each input are different, so you end up with your own style. And the things that were important to me was that the drums had to swing. They had to make a communication on a very primitive level. Not just going bang, bang, bang. They had to create something which made you want to do that. Because that's what they did to me, the guys I listened to. And I found it much more interesting to think in patterns, with the bass drum especially, than just playing time. So I would be trying to find odd places to put the beats and trying to get a little more control with the foot to be able to do some of the faster things in certain areas. It seems to be less important now because it's a lot easier to create these things with the double pedals. We can do a lot more, but sometimes we do too much. The magic of one bass drum pedal is that you have to think in patterns. You have to think in terms of the music. You have to know where you hit and where you don't hit. And that is all part of the drummer being a musician, not just a hitter. Because if you're playing music, everything will sound better. If you're just a timekeeper, it's okay. But, yeah.
Okay, so Deep Purple had a lot of different lineups, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, and so on. Is there any mark that still, you have by the heart that you still prefer, that you think that was actually the best from your point of view?
No, I wouldn't look at it like that. The most exciting
Okay.
was obviously when Mark II was formed and the direction of the band changed just because 40% of the personnel had changed. Ian and Roger came in, and just the way Roger played and the way Ian sang and the ability of his voice to do different things meant that the music was being created a different way. And it was fun to do that, but it was also at that moment we realized that what we were doing was exactly the right thing at the right time for a lot of people. And that moment of knowledge that people are taking notice of what you're doing, are enjoying it, and they are elevating you to another level. It's nothing to do with you. You played the music the only way you could. For these 5 people, this is the solution they came up with. And that realization that you actually are doing something that people like and are taking note of, that's very exciting, But that doesn't make one band better than the other. It was just a time. And I would think you ask any artist, when they realize that their career has a chance to be successful, that is a very exciting thing to go in your head.
So you're here presenting the new record, as we already said, Now What? A lot of classic bands actually are, making statement in the last few months or even years, telling that, making new music is not worth anymore. That doesn't make sense anymore because you don't sell records anymore, because the people want the classics when you play live. Yeah. So why for Deep Purple, it's not like that? Because you always produce a lot of music through the years. Maybe, some periods was, top of inspiration, maybe less, but you kept it on. So
well, we still have a massive fan base, and I think they're interested when we come up with something new. They've been with us a long time. Some of them from as long as they've been born, because some were only 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
Some guys at the back of the hall are 65 years old, but they all like the same thing, and they all come to enjoy a Purple concert. It's, I don't know how to say this, it's the spirit of the band is what keeps it all going, and the spirit of the band means that new music has to be created every now and again. Yes, it's less important than it was, new records. It's a shame, because I remember as a kid waiting for the next Beatles album was great, and you didn't have to wait very long.
Yes.
Yeah, because that was how you worked. You toured to promote a record. Now you make a record to promote a tour, and it is different. There are enough people out there who will legitimately buy a Deep Purple new record to make the finances for the record company and all the promotion that goes with it viable, to make it work, Sure, we know there are lots of people who will steal it. That's the world we live in. Yeah. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can... I mean, back in the days when these were the records, and somebody brought out the first cassette recorder, or somebody made a cassette copy of the record. Now, everybody thought that was okay, but it wasn't. That was illegal too. When you buy the record, this was the only way you were allowed to play it, by law. Now, we've had pirating since little cassette players. So it's just now it's on a level where it's far more prevalent. It's there. It's the world we live in. But most of your genuine fans, they will buy the record properly because they want to own everything about it. And there's enough of them to make it possible for us to, in collaboration with the record companies, spend the money we need to produce something that people will like.
Yeah.
You know, and for the people who steal it, well, they'll steal anything, so it makes no difference. You know, you can't control that.
And the title "Now What" has something to do with, you know, what we just said.
Well,
I mean, or when you started, like, you know, now what? This is the 19th record.
It was an Ian Gillan idea.
Uh-huh.
And when we were thinking about titles for the record, everybody was coming up with different ideas, and nobody actually had an idea that everybody liked. And eventually, Ian just was more strong about. He said, "This is the one. This is what you're going to be called." And eventually, we said, "Look, you feel strongly about it. I don't care anymore. It's got to be called something. You have it, you know, because although it means very little at the moment, in a year's time, it'll be the Now What album, and people won't think about it, you know. I mean, this in 1968, 69, Book of Talisman. What did that mean?
Yeah.
But it becomes something when it becomes physical and when you know it. So the actual name really isn't that important. It's got to be something. It's Now What,
Okay.
and it'll become part of the Purple history the way everything else has.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you ever wonder, you know, when the new tour is about to come, now what? Is it still worth to go on and, you know, and on and on?
That was Ian's thing. We've done everything. Now what?
Yeah.
We do it again.
Yeah. So it's still, I mean, for you, it's still like the most exciting thing in the world.
Yeah. When I was 15, I played drums because I liked it, and I still like it. And I know that one day it will be finished, and then I'll be really sorry and I'll really miss it. So while I can do it, and I still enjoy it, I want to keep doing it as long as I can, you know, because it makes me happy. And the byproduct of that is it makes other people happy too. And it's you know, in this world, there's a lot of stuff out there that makes you unhappy. So if we can be part of the other side, we can be on the good guy's side, then that's okay. And I keep being the good guy as long as I can.
Did you imagine to have such a long and strong career?
I don't think anybody thinks that way.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a kid, of course, you're just having fun. And if you're lucky enough to get successful, the success creeps up. You don't see it. It's like, and then you're successful, you know.
Yeah.
That much or that, it depends. But, you know, when you see young kids, they're looking for success. And maybe for the wrong reason. They never find it. It finds you. It makes its own choices, you know. And it can be as simple as you have a voice that people like, or you can do something that nobody else can do. But it's beyond your control. You see people striving after this elusive fame and fortune and success. They never find it. They might touch it for a little while and then it goes away. If it's part of if what you do is natural to you, and people believe that what you're doing because you love it, and you communicate something, then that you might get that tap on the shoulder.
Okay. So, Mr. Ian Peiss, thanks very much for your time.
Pleasure.
And always a pleasure for us to have you
Great.
back to Italy, and hope to have you back to Linear Rock soon.
Yeah,
Thank
been
you.
good.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
job.
you so much.
Okay.